Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into the fascinating ancient pages of the Book of Clement. If you've ever been captivated by the mysteries of early religious texts, you are absolutely in for a treat. We're going to explore a true cornerstone of Ethiopian Orthodox theology. So let's dive right in and see what secrets this ancient manuscript holds. To really grasp this complex text, we're going to follow a pretty straightforward roadmap. We'll trace the origins of the book, the creation of Adam, the fall from Eden, the lives of Cain, Abel, and Seth, and finally, wrap up with its significance in modern orthodoxy. Let's get right to it.
Starting off with Section 1, the origins of the book and its secret revelation. Let's take a look at where this remarkable text actually comes from and how it frames its own ancient mysteries.
Grounding ourselves in the physical source material here, we're looking at the publication details of a modern printing, specifically published in 1990, according to the Ethiopian calendar. I always find this grounding, It reminds us we're examining a tangible, historically significant document. We're not just floating around in abstract ideas. This is a physical text that's been meticulously preserved, translated, and printed for generations of scholars and believers.
The core premise of the text itself is, it's absolutely fascinating. The Book of Clement, or Kalementos in the Ge'ez tradition, is essentially this ancient puzzle. It frames its profound theological doctrines as secretive, divine revelations passed straight from the Apostle Peter to his disciple Clement. It gives you this incredible insider's look into the divine order. You really get the feeling you're uncovering hidden apostolic wisdom.
And you can see that beautifully illustrated in the introductory preface and its highly structured table of contents. The book maps out this massive, sweeping chronology. It doesn't just kick off with human history. It literally begins up in the heavens, detailing the cosmic mystery of the Trinity before moving straight down into earthly creation. Just looking at the structure tells you this is an epic, all-encompassing narrative designed to explain the whole shebang, the entire architecture of existence.
Which brings us to our second section, the creation of Adam, the cosmic dawn. Moving into the text itself, the first major narrative arc transports us to the very beginning of existence.
Now, the crucial thing to understand here is that before humanity even steps onto the stage, the text maps out sequential eras. Age 1 chronicles the creation of the angelic hosts and a devastating cosmic rebellion. Just imagine the sheer scale of that. Spiritual armies fracturing the heavens before the earth even existed. It sets up a universe that's already scarred by conflict. Only then, in Age 2, do we actually get to the creation of Adam. That sequence is absolutely vital. Humanity is dropped into a world where spiritual warfare has already begun. From there, we move to their placement in Eden, the inevitable fall, and the birth of the first children.
God spoke these mysteries to Peter. Let's just pause on that for a second. This creation story isn't just some dry list of historical facts. The text presents itself as a majestic, divine secret spoken directly from the heavens. When you read it, you're really meant to feel the weight of a divine whisper, a sacred truth being entrusted to humanity through the apostles.
Looking at the dual-column layout on this page, we can see how the ancient liturgical Ge'ez language sits side by side with modern Amharic translations. It's a brilliant format, honestly. It ensures that while this profound creation narrative keeps its ancient sacred rhythm, it stays entirely accessible to the modern reader. It's like bridging thousands of years of linguistic history right there on the page. That leads us right into Section 3, the fall from Eden, innocence lost. The cosmic tranquility of creation is abruptly shattered as the narrative shifts to the Garden of Eden and humanity's ultimate betrayal.
The text brilliantly illustrates the sudden, harsh duality introduced into the human experience. It dramatically juxtaposes humanity's initial state, divine grace, immortality, direct, uninterrupted communion with the Creator, against the heavy earthly struggles that immediately followed. Because after the fall, the narrative just plunges into mortality. It becomes this story of scraping a living from the dirt, dealing with disease, and that deeply painful, enduring separation from paradise. The contrast is meant to be totally jarring, highlighting exactly what was sacrificed.
As we see in this transition marked prominently right at the beginning of Chapter 2, the tone of the book shifts with incredible urgency. The elegant descriptions of cosmic creation are suddenly gone, replaced by a laser focus on Adam's immediate earthly life. The visual break in the manuscript almost mirrors the spiritual break of humanity. It zeroes in on the tragic consequences of giving in to temptation, detailing the harsh realities of surviving outside of Eden.
Because, interestingly, the expulsion from Eden isn't merely framed as a punishment here.
It sets up a deeply emotional, profoundly human story. It becomes this narrative about innocence, betrayal, and a desperate, enduring quest to regain what was lost. Actually, it transforms Adam from a distant historical figure into an incredibly relatable archetype of human struggle and hope, something we can all empathize with when facing our own modern adversities.
Moving on to Section 4. Cain, Abel, and Seth, the first generations. The brutal consequences of the fall don't just stop with Adam and Eve, they bleed directly into the lives of their first children.
The book meticulously tracks the divergent moral paths of these first generations, almost acting as a character study of early humanity. First, we see Cain, consumed by jealousy and violence, marking the very first earthly tragedy. Then we have Abel, representing innocence and ultimate sacrifice as the first martyr. And then, crucially, we have Seth. Seth is really the turning point here. He embodies righteousness. He represents the restored lineage, the promise that humanity can still choose the light even after the devastating darkness of the fall. These later pages, densely packed with ancient script, detail exactly how these early generational shifts unfolded. And it goes way beyond simple genealogy. It establishes that the actions of Cain, Abel, and Seth actually laid the foundational moral struggles for all of humanity moving forward. Every modern conflict, every act of jealousy, and every pursuit of righteousness traces its roots back to these heavily chronicled pages.
So, the key takeaways from this generational saga are pretty stark. The text really emphasizes the earthly reality of human frailty. It documents the terrifyingly rapid spread of sin and conflict once it entered the world. But you know what? It never abandons hope. It places immense theological weight on the preservation of a righteous bloodline through Seth, proving that God's connection to humanity somehow survived that exile from Eden.
Finally, we arrive at Section 5, Significance in Orthodoxy, a Living Tradition. Why do these ancient chronicles of creation and conflict still matter so deeply to believers today?
Well, the Book of Clement is so much more than just ancient history. It fills in vital narrative gaps that standard biblical history leaves wide open. It deepens the theological understanding of why human nature is so divided between good and evil. It connects modern believers directly to what they view as original apostolic revelations. But most importantly, it actively shapes the cultural and theological worldview of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. It provides the very lens through which they view the entire cosmos.
Just look at the intricate, dense theology woven into these pages. These are absolutely not just museum pieces gathering dust. They're living documents. They are actively studied by scholars and clergy right now, used to provide a richer, more detailed understanding of the complex relationship between God and humanity. The physical density of the text on the page perfectly mirrors the immense theological depth it contains.
Ultimately, what this explainer reveals is that the Book of Clement thrives because it does something truly incredible. It transforms abstract, lofty theology into a deeply compelling, universally human story. It's the story of where we came from, why we struggle, and how we might eventually find our way back to grace. It is, quite literally, the epic story of us.
Which leaves us with a final, fascinating thought. If the ancient pages of the Book of Clement still hold the power to explain our origins and define human morality today, what other forgotten narratives are out there? What else is waiting in the archives, ready to challenge everything we think we know about our past? Thank you so much for exploring this remarkable text with me today. Keep asking questions and keep learning.